NBC News, it looks like Bill and Hillary Clinton agreed to testify in the House Epstein probe ahead of a contempt vote. The Clintons had previously refused to appear before the Republican-led House Oversight Committee. We all know that this is something that Steve Bannon ended up running into. He was held in contempt of Congress for not going along with testifying. The Clintons have been flouting this for a long time. Many people were asking, are they going to live by the same rules? Are they going to face the same consequences? It looks like they are going to blink and testify. Guys, what do we think?
I think that they're going to risk perjury over contempt. Because if you look at like James Clapper, perjury, said they didn't wittingly spy on the American people with the PRISM program. They did. Nothing's happened to James, or what's his name? What did I say? Not Comey. Clapper. James. Nothing's happened to him yet. So I think they're going to go on the stand and may very well tell a crafted lie. I don't know, but I don't know. I think that they're willing to commit perjury at this point, the way that the legal system has been treating.
Well, they have a good track record with dodging perjury charges.
Yeah.
There's no consequences for the Clintons when they perjure themselves. So, if I was Bill Clinton, I'd be like, perjury it is. I'm not going to go ahead and try to be in contempt.
You said multiple times. Wait, Adam, let me ask you this. You said the first time you got engaged in politics was when you saw Clinton perjured and then didn't get busted for it.
Yep. I was a young guy, like 23 or something like that, and I figured, he perjured himself. I was like, okay, he lied under oath. If anyone else does that, they go to jail. So he's probably going to be removed from office, being young and naive as I was. And then when he wasn't, I was like, what the hell's going on around here? I was like, what? I couldn't believe it because, again, I was young and naive, and I thought that if he broke the, it was arguably worse than what Nixon did. And now, granted, Nixon wasn't removed from office; he stepped down. But still, I was like, okay, well, this seems cut and dry,
Well, Clinton got away with it, I think, largely because the religious right or the Republicans at the time made the mistake of making it about the blowjob and not about the procedure. Like they made it a moral majority argument, and that actually, I think, fell down as opposed to a legal procedure argument of, hey, committed perjury, needs to go to jail.
That was the frustrating thing for me, is like people were constantly saying, oh, of course he got a blowjob, powerful guys and Kennedy and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, why are people even talking about that? That's not what this is about. Like, nobody goes to jail because they got a blowjob. You go to jail because you broke the law. And it blew my mind that it was being cast that way. I was like, I can't believe this. Again, young and naive. I'm like, what are you talking about? This isn't about a blowjob. He lied. I'd go to jail if I lied on under oath.
Well, two things. First, I speak for Hillary when I say, at this point, what difference does it make now? And secondly, he perjured himself because who's going to admit to having, relations with a fat chick?
Right. What was his lie? What was his actual lie on the stand?
He lied about whether or not he had relations with her.
I did not have sex with that woman.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky.
What is exactly
pointed at the American people, pointed at the camera.
But what's the House supposed to ask them that they would they have very limited information. They'll be like, did you go to, or were you on the Epstein list? Be like, yeah. Well, okay, that's what exactly are we just hoping to get out of this?
Well, the process is the key, right? Because obviously we know the photos are out there. We know his name is mentioned. The question is, how bad can you make him look? How much can you drag him through that? How many places can you lead him where he might further indict himself or create some kind of problem? I don't think there's probably going to be a lot of there. I think most of the revelations are already in the Epstein files, but putting him through that, making him go through that process is itself a punishment. We learned this from the Trump administration, right? It's not always what you're going to get. Once you put people under oath and you put them up in front of Congress, they might come out and say things that are going to just bury them politically, and that's ultimately what a lot of people are looking for. Maybe not the most, upstanding way to conduct yourself, but it is ultimately the way American politics works.
This is going to be bread and circuses at the end of it. Nothing will come of this. It's not going to come of it, but it is the bread and circuses we're asking for. We've been asking for high-profile people to be brought into court and have to testify for the things they may or may not have done. So I think at the end of it, I think people will look at this and say we are doing something. And I think that's good going into the midterms.
It's a great way to call it a bread and circus, because as I'm scrolling, with the economy, what's happened with silver went up 4 times and then got 30% dropped. All these people, they took people for a run. Crypto dropped by 10, 15%. This is the bread and circus, is the Epstein stuff. That's what they want people to focus on and fight about, when in the background they're changing our economy into a crypto, control state. It feels like behind us. It's another conversation completely, but I do sense that.
There's some truth where like the entire Epstein thing, it hit a point, kind of like Pizzagate, where like when it first happened, you're kind of following it and you're like, yeah, that actually does there might be something here. And then I remember it just hit a certain point where it was like just all the insane people flooded in, and then it just became like completely untouchable. This is kind of what's happening with the Epstein stuff now, is it's gotten to the point where it's gotten so mainstream, it's turned into something that it never was, where now it's starting to become a toxic thing, and it's going to make it more difficult to actually get any justice out of this, because it's just been flooded with the retard right, for lack of a better word. And in addition, it's people are expecting different things as a result of like this entire investigation.
Well,
and
and
it's just going to clog everything up.
And there's tons of confirmation bias, right? Whether or not there's anything that's actually actionable in there, people see a name, they're like, see, this name's in the Epstein files, so of course that means that they were doing this thing, and it's just turned into just a slop fest of people pointing fingers. Of course, there are things that people should be prosecuted for. I'm not making the argument that there aren't, but whether or not people have broken the law is irrelevant to most of the people that want to use this as a club on X to be like, this person was in the Epstein files, so of course, blah blah blah. There are people, again, that, like I said, there are people that have broken the law. They should be investigated. They should be arrested. If they're alleged to have broken the law, they should see the full extent of justice. But there's a online phenomena of saying, look, they're in the Epstein file, and I found this, and blah, blah, blah. And it's just a slew of, just an orgy of confirmation bias where people are pointing fingers and saying, your guy's bad, your guy's bad, your guy's bad, or you know this guy, or whatever. You know, any kind of tenuous connection they're going to use to say, this person did this, and it's just turned into something where you can't really find any clarity.
I'm glad you changed your description from a slew to an orgy. You're saying, Auron?
Well, I was just going to say, this is the nature of
topical
news cycles. You know, when you had the Epstein files as a story out there that was unclear, you could build the conspiracy, and there was a real conspiracy. Like, obviously, these files were bad. Our elites did not want us to have access to them. They were embarrassed about what went on there, and they didn't want those out. But it was really what you could project onto this, what I think has built a lot of hype and interest into it. Once it's out there in the open, once we actually have the files, that's actually less exciting, because you can no longer just speculate about what's being hidden and what forces are working against you and who's hiding documents. Now you have to actually sift through everything. You need to verify. You need to fact check. A lot of this is going to fall away because it's unprovable, or it was just salacious but ultimately didn't go anywhere. We are, I think, ultimately going to get facts that are important. I think this release still matters, but I think the hype cycle with this is done. Now it's more of the drudgery of investigation. Maybe something more will come out, but I think Adam's ultimately right that what really matters is we're putting bad people in front of Congress, in front of questioning. That's what people wanted. That's what people especially want to see from the Trump administration. He's supposed to be this guy from outside the swamp. He's crushing the elites. He's breaking through the institutional barriers that exist in Washington. They wanted to see him make the elites pay. And the fact that he did not do that initially with the Epstein files, I think, was a lot of what people felt betrayal about. So getting this done, getting elites in front of cameras, in front of questions, I think that's what matters to people more than the actual content. And I'm not saying the content doesn't matter, but I think that's ultimately what's going to be cathartic for people through this process.
Well, we need this. In 2016, one of the great takeaways from the debates was Trump telling Hillary Clinton, because you'd be in prison. You remember this, right? And we all got riled up and said, man, that was the moment when I knew I was voting for Trump. And then we had the 16 through 20 administration. Hillary didn't go to prison. And I think a lot of people were hesitant to vote for him again because they saw the first administration not actually carry the water and carry the weight of the things they said they were going to do. I think this administration has the ability and the time to get it done. We're less than a year away from midterms, and I've always held the belief that the reason we haven't seen sweeping arrests yet is because, one, when you go to start arresting people, it's all hell's going to break loose. And to organize that without leaks, because people will flee the country, they have dual citizenship, they will go. You need to be very precise. You can't have leaks. And for optics' sake, if you arrest someone at a high profile level, you have to find juries that will indict, judges that will take the case, not throw them out. A lot of these things that we saw, two people indicted, right? It was Comey and someone else. charges got
Letitia James.
Yeah. So it's gone, right? I think for midterms, you have to have good optics. You have to have energized people. I think you wait to prosecute these people closer to midterms because you need to energize your party movement.
I think it's also very clear at this point that the Clintons aren't going to jail. Like, they're just not going to put an old man in jail at this point, no matter how much he deserves it. So really, it is about the truth and reconciliation. It is getting him up there, getting to the bottom of this. Is there anyone else connected? Is there a wider conspiracy we need to understand, a wider network? I think that's the kind of stuff that you're going to be driving at with the Clintons. I don't think they're actually going to be looking to pursue a particular criminal case against them or try to drive deeper into getting these guys in jail. Those optics aren't great for you at this point. There was a time when putting Hillary Clinton in the jail was dynamic, like you're saying. The lock her up chance mattered. I think at this point people have kind of moved on, and you can't. This is the upside and the downside of Biden stepping in there. Biden is just simply not as nefarious a creature as Hillary Clinton, right? Like, he's just too, I'm sure he's a bad person, but he's just too checked out. He's, completely unable to function mentally. You can only really feel like you can hold him accountable for his actions for so long because of how senile he is. And so people aren't there chanting, put Joe in jail. It's like, put Joe in the nursing home, right? Like, at this point. And so he's not the person that their ire is really directed at. You don't have that easy target to put away. I mean, someone like Anthony Fauci would be far more relevant at this point. So I just don't think the Clintons create that target that satiates the desire for people to have a nefarious character put behind bars, but they could lead us towards someone that is worthy of that.
I do think, I think this is going to turn into, you're saying, bread and circus, maybe. I think just a circus, because, one thing you have to consider is, the House Judiciary Committee on the Republican side, it's Jim Jordan's on there, Thomas Massey's on there. Like, you're gonna get some insane sound bites coming out of this. It's gonna get chippy. All these, especially these new congressmen, they're gonna be looking for their moment, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so they're gonna be unleashing just some craziness on Bill, and that's gonna be actually a problem. I think Bill's gonna be ready for that sort of thing. He's gonna be able to counter it. I'm not terribly optimistic about this whatsoever. I don't think we're gonna get the slam dunk that we think we're gonna get.
No, but even if they put the Clintons, in jail, that's not gonna move the needle for actual policy in the United States. It's not going to change, the nature of government, because they're out of government. They're just, old people that have been put out to pasture. So it'd be fine. I'd be perfectly fine with them going to jail, because I'm sure that, Clinton and they both have broke plenty of laws, but it wouldn't change the forecast for, the midterms. It wouldn't change the forecast for the next presidential election. And so at the end of the day, it doesn't change the circumstances for the right in the United States. And the important thing is the right winning, because that's how we save the country from what the left is doing.
I'd be much happier to see Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar in prison.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
I would, because
exactly
that's actually where we're at. They're robbing the coffers from my grandchildren, as we speak. And a lot of people are calling for Insurrection Act, these things like this. I think stay focused, keep doing audits. Go to California next, go to Ohio. You start tearing open the books and you show where these people are actually robbing our country and bringing in these migrants who are ruining our culture. I think you focus on that, you stay the course, you stay the mission.
Yeah, and that's where an actual probe would be quite interesting. Drag some people in and be asking what did you think, Tim Walz? How did Somalis actually benefit Minneapolis? Do you have any data to present us? Do you have anything to back this up whatsoever? Just those simple questions would completely, I think, pay long-term dividends for the right.
Yeah,
Just
I think
putting it all on display.
I think you're both correct, because ultimately we're in the scenario where we only have so much political capital. You have to choose your targets carefully, and ultimately, again, I think people do care about the Epstein files, but as you say, moving into midterms, looking at the situation in the country, would much rather see Democratic criminals currently being held accountable rather than trying to reach back 8, 12, 15 years to try to figure out and relitigate how these people conducted themselves. Even though the justice is critical, it really is about optics. It really is about expending political capital. And when you're in that scenario, you have to have a laser focus. And again, as you guys were saying, someone like Tim Walz going to jail would just be far more important, far more critical, and it would actually show that the Trump administration isn't just looking back hoping to pull some skeletons out of closets, but is actively looking at Democrats today as political enemies who are hurting the country and is willing to step in and stop them and hold them accountable.
Yeah, you settle scores after you win, but it's like you got to be in a position where you can actually settle scores.
Yeah.
We're not there yet.
I know it's been a few years, but they rounded up 1,600 of us and put most of us in prison for walking through a building peacefully. They are our enemy. They mean to kill us and imprison us, and we need to stay focused.
Yep.
They're willing to shoot a president. They're willing to shoot, Charlie Kirk. They're not playing nice, and we really need to stay focused and not get so distracted by things. And I mean, the Epstein files, they matter. They absolutely do. I know I get hate for this, but our focus should be, we don't have a lot of time left. We have maybe a year before they win midterms and they kneecap the rest of the administration and make us lame duck. We can't pass things in Congress, can't pass things in the Senate. We need to stay focused.
And to your point, I've said this before, they're not going to just go after people that are big names. They're not going to just go after Donald Trump. They're not going to just go after, people that are influential on the right, because those people are the people that normal people expect to get wrapped up. When the guy down the street that did a little bit of canvassing for the Republicans goes to jail, then everybody that knows him is like, oh, I could be on the chopping block. And that cools people's desire to be politically active in the future. So they'll go after the big fish. Sure, they'll go after Donald Trump. That's definitely going to happen. But they'll also go after the small fish, because if they get enough small fish, and they're easier to get too. If you get some dude that's just in the GOP or whatever, that's at a state level or even a town level, if those people go to jail, it doesn't cost them a lot of money. They don't have a lot of money to defend themselves the way that, bigger names do. If you go after people that are, average Joes, they're easier to put in jail, and it does a whole lot more to cool off people's interest in being politically active. You have more of your average people that are just like, I want to keep my head down. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want them to, I don't want the eye of Sauron to be put on me, So it's really important that we win in November, and it's really important that we win in 2028, because it's not just the big names. It's not just the people that you see on podcasts. It's going to be people that just like Adam said, 1,600 people that were just at the Capitol, and they didn't do anything particularly bad. They were walking through. They put a lot of people in jail, and the reason they did that was to intimidate the right. They're going to go even harder should the left win again.
They freaking intimidated everybody. Like, people on the left too are like, I better bow down to my servant master even harder, because I see they're serious now. It's crazy.
No, the left cheered them on. The left cheered them on when they did this. They actually formed groups. The FBI paid, I think it was position hunters, $100,000 to source out and find anyone who was there that day. Like, they cheered it on. So I don't think the left necessarily, were afraid. I think they were like, oh, we're in power. We're now taking power. And we really need to have that type of mentality. We're in power now. We need to wield that power and make sure we crush the communists for the foreseeable future and never let them rise again. That's our energy. That's where we need to be.
Knowing what you know now, having been arrested for being at the Capitol, served 3 months in prison, basically, literally, and I assume that had some sort of radicalization effect on your brain. Like, you're running for office now. Like, you've changed. You're like outspoken now on the internet, on TV. But like, knowing what you know about innocent people getting targeted, or people that did very little and getting big sentences, how would you go forward against, like you said, an attempted communist revolution? Like, how would you deal with that in an attempt to not radicalize those people the way that some of these people of J6 were?
Well, I don't think some of these people are salvageable or savable. I think that we're at war, whether you want to admit it, whether you want to accept it. We're at war with these people. These people have no desire to live in the country as it exists. They don't want to be here. They don't want to live next to us. They don't want to be our neighbors. There was a survey that was done, I think it was by, I think it was Rasmussen, where they asked people during COVID, what should we do with people who are refusing to take the vaccine? I think it was 29% of them said that my children should be removed from my custody for not vaccinating them. We're talking about almost 30% of our neighbors who said, I want to take their children from them. That's who they are. They're not hiding from it. They're not shying away from it. So we need to wake up and realize who these people are. They will stop at nothing to crush and kill us.
Adam, I feel like I've said this 1,000 times, but I just get, more and more manic every time I say it, because it seems like people are not listening. How am I still having to explain to people at this point that that's where we are? Like, every time it's, Trump might take some kind of action, we might use some kind of power. It's, well, what if the Democrats get back in charge? Like, how are we still
They've already
making
done it,
that
dude.
argument?
They've already done it.
It's absolutely nuts. It's like, you guys understand that you can just never let the left come back into power again. That is the only answer. The minute they are back in power, they will arrest everybody, and they don't have your morals, they don't have your scruples, they don't have your principles. None of this will stop them because they also don't have activist judges sitting there waiting to sabotage them. They will have the full power of the government. They will run through you entirely. It's ridiculous to me that we still have to make this argument. I don't understand how people don't grasp
On
it.
Friday, we had Cam Higbee on, and Lisa was here, and we were talking about Don Lemon being arrested, and they both were kind of squishy on it because they're like, well, I don't want them to arrest, me, or, Cam was saying that. And it's like, guys, like, you're not going to be able to say, oh, we don't want to set the precedent, because the precedent has already been set. Like, the left will do this. They've already done this. When they get back into power, they're going to do it again. So I understand that, you care about the First Amendment, and you have, you care about the freedom of press, and you have principles and stuff. They don't. So to behave as if they do, or to say that any exercise of power that the right does is going to give permission to the left, that's just wrong. They're going to do it regardless.
Yeah, like it's going to be like 2030 and we're all facing the wall. And I look up at Auron and I was like, man, we should have left Don Lemon alone.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.